having other examples in our lives and realizing that the number one important thing in our marriage was not money. It's certainly important, okay? Mm-hmm. But the number one thing was to keep our marriage together and our friendship together. Here's the key. Now, the guys are not going to like it. The women are going to love it. Here's the number one key, in my opinion, is treat them like you did when you were dating. It's kind of like, think about your garden. You know, if you have a garden and you just let the weeds grow and you never weed it, you never take care of it, you know, eventually it's going to be a mess. Yeah. And I think it's the same way with our marriage.
Hi, it's Lynn Podetti here. Please meet my guest today, a successful entrepreneur, Jeffrey Lestz, who owns a company called Genistar, a financial services firm based in the UK and USA. Jeff was an orphan at the age of 7 and had a troubled upbringing, but despite that, he became a millionaire by the age of 31. I met Jeff last year when he was a guest speaker at the Hillsong church I attended, and I was drawn to him by his wisdom around God and entrepreneurship. But as I got to know Jeff more, I really looked up to how Jeff is able to be really successful and able to maintain such a long and strong relationship with his wife for many decades. One thing I really want to help entrepreneurs with is being able to have a successful marriage while being an entrepreneur. We must all aim to stay happily married despite the pressure of entrepreneurship, because seriously, I believe that relationship is even more important than business or money.
Hey Jeff, so good to see you again.
Hello, Lynn. Good to see you too.
Yeah, we were together on the Kind Boss podcast last year, and yeah, couldn't wait to get you back on today. And one of the things that really makes me admire and inspired is just seeing you and your wife after all these years of marriage, and you, of course, being an entrepreneur all your life, and yet you're able to maintain that. And so in today's episode, I just want to deep dive into like the secret to successful marriage while you're like hustling away as an entrepreneur. So yeah, Jeff, tell me more about, I guess, your initial journey to entrepreneurship, and how did you meet your partner?
You know, Margot and I met in high school, and we were both hippies, and she fell in love with my ponytail and I fell in love with her frizzy hair. And I was always one of these energetic, outgoing, extroverts, and Margot was very quiet and a real introvert. So when they say opposites attract, I mean, it really is true, because we are, as they say here in the UK, we're like chalk and cheese. I mean, we're just total polar opposites, you know. But we met in high school in art class, and we just became really friends from the time we were 15 till we were 16 years old. And then we started, I guess you could call it dating, through high school, and then went to university together and got married when we were 19 years old, while we were, she was still at university and I had quit university and actually went into sales in the financial services business. Margot was always supportive of me, because in financial services, I'd work a lot of evenings. I don't think I ever heard her complain, that I'd have to be away in the evenings working with clients. I think also it's a lot of it was her nature she just liked her time being alone also.
Yeah. So was she entrepreneur at all? Does she have the entrepreneur gene in her that allowed her to kind of understand for you?
If we were not together, I don't think Margot would be an entrepreneur. I think she'd probably be a professor at a university. She loves studying. She loves academia. And again, that's polar opposite to me. I like doing, not just, studying about it. But, she was just always supportive. And I think one of the things that really helped us, Lynn, early on, especially when we would have been 24 years old when I left my corporate job in sales, and I went into management also. And then we decided really to start our own business. And we started learning how to set joint goals together. And we, started understanding having his, hers, and ours together. But, Margot she never was really that driven, but she was always very supportive. And one of the things I guess I love about her, we've been married now for 45 years. She's got to be like the most non-money motivated person I've ever met. I mean, she just, as long as she's got enough to pay the bills and she has a good lifestyle, not a crazy lifestyle, she's just a very, very happy person. So, it's a real joy being married to someone like that.
Yeah. So it sounds like she's quite so different in terms of she's not as driven as you, and yet you're so driven, and yet it didn't hold you back. She was supportive and kind of, I guess, adapted to you. Did she ever lose herself in the way? Was there anything that you had to do to kind of, keep her satisfied? It sounds like she's keeping you satisfied.
No, the first 11 years we worked together. So she was my office manager. She has a real gift in her life of bringing order to chaos. And I have a real gift in my life of stirring up a mess and kind of getting things moving. And so she was always very organized. And I can't say that I've always listened to her. But, it's been amazing how that women have this sixth sense about them, that over the years, I started learning that there was just this quiet calmness to Margot. And she would say, Jeff, I really think that we should do this. And it's amazing how that her counsel has always just been spot on. I mean, it's just been, right on the money.
Wow.
So learning that over the years. Now, listen, I got to tell you, there's still times where I go, no, we're not going to do that. And then I'll mess up and I'll go, gee, honey, I should have listened to you. And it is amazing, though, how that she, she's met people before that I was going to go and do a deal with. And she's like, something shady about that guy, something dodgy. I don't think I'd do it. And said, no, the guy's fantastic. And a few years later, proves it out that, that something was wrong. Okay. And she just, again, I think God made women where they just have this sixth sense about them that guys really normally just don't have.
Yeah, that is true.
And so the first 11 years we worked together, and I had always told her, I said, listen, if you work hard, let's work hard together. Once we hit a certain point, we had set a goal. You can go do whatever it is that you want to go do. And I asked her, as I mentioned, his, hers, and ours. And before we ever had accumulated any kind of wealth at all, I said, honey, if you could do anything, if money was no object, what would you do? And she said, I'd go to university and study and be a professional student. Wow. And so at the end of 11 years, she took a 10-year break and took courses and got, a couple of degrees in interior design and architecture and general studies and international studies and French. And, she just had a great time for 10 years, then came back to work with me for 4 years, and then took an 11-year break, and we bought a home in Nice, France, and she studied there pretty much the whole time, French and French literature. And so, I think that the real key, if you ever ask Margot, what's the key to our successful marriage, she would always say that it was that we grew with each other and we allowed the other person to grow and to respect where they were at in their lives, Yeah. And she's back now working with me. She's been working with me now for the last 3 or 4 years. And I'm sure sometime in the near future, she's going to want to take another break.
Yes.
But she's just always been very, very supportive. And, and it doesn't mean that she was always involved in the business, but she's always been very supportive.
Yeah. And it sounds like you guys have your own goals and you allow each other to achieve those goals, even if sometimes it's a separate goal. How often do you set these goals? Because I must say, me and my husband might have like a broad goal where we're like, we want to just be more successful, let's just say, or more money. And one day we'll buy this fancy house, but we don't have a clear goal or path. Like, any tips around the way you guys set goals together?
Yeah, obviously it's changed. Back when we were 24, we were broke. So, it's kind of like, number one goal is let's get out of debt.
Yep.
And then the next goal was let's go build a stable 6-figure income.
Yep.
And let's accumulate a certain amount of wealth. Let's invest and, let's be smart with our money. Let's also support charities that we believe in. And we kind of set and established, those goals and pretty much kind of put it on cruise control. I mean, it's interesting. We live on a very small portion of what we make, and we're just not into, and I'm not criticizing, but we're just not into having a big this or big that. We have a beautiful home in London. We also have a home outside of London, in the countryside. And I drive a nice BMW that's, nothing super fancy, but we just love our lives and we love adventure. Yeah, we're trying to still stay young after being married for 45 years and trying to keep that, just like anything in your life, you have to continue to work at it and to keep it fresh.
Yeah. And how did you know to kind of prioritize it from a young age? Like, when you met her so young and you obviously was just trying to hustle and get out of debt and work, how did you, what made you decide to go, okay, no, our marriage is really important? Was there some sort of, your upbringing that made you go, no, I want to make sure that my marriage is the number one thing in my life?
Yeah. I think, Lynn, that, I think one of the big things that helped is that we were best friends in high school and university. So it wasn't just a physical attraction. A lot of times, the reason that people end up separating and things don't go well is because it's only a physical attraction. And after a while that can get old. But we just kind of fell in love with each other's personalities and differences, and I think that I brought some spice to Margot's life, and she was originally born and raised on a farm and had a little bit of a boring life, and all of a sudden this crazy hippie guy from Chicago comes into her life, and we start talking about the future. And so I think that it, made a conscious effort to really grow. But I think one of the biggest things, Lynn, that helped was at 24 years old, I was introduced really to entrepreneurship and going into business with a company that it was in the US. It's now called Primerica. And being around other successful people and having a mentor so that you could kind of tie into what they were doing. They were just great examples. It wasn't just reading a book. But then a lot of it was just, reading the right books, listening to the right things, and understanding that you actually have the power to who you're going to allow to speak into your life. And so at a very young age, all of a sudden, we met people like John Maxwell, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, some really, really good people. In addition to that, the company that we were involved in. So it was this whole journey of self-improvement and realizing that we didn't want to stay where we were. And if you wanted to have more, then you had to become more. You actually had to be able to do, more things in your life. Of course, you've met and interviewed Rabbi Daniel Lapin, who's been one of my great mentors. And so I think that for us, a big part of it is having other examples in our lives and realizing that the number one important thing in our marriage was not money. It's certainly important, okay? Mm-hmm. But the number one thing was to keep our marriage together and our friendship together, And so I think that that's really helped over the years. I think Margot has helped calm me down to probably not be so driven, to be able to, it's like, hey, Jeff, smell the roses, okay? It's all, it's great to work hard, but go play hard too. Yeah. So she's just a lot of fun. Fortunately, we still laugh together and and still love each other even after 45 years.
Yeah. And so like in terms of what did you do every week or every month? Like, is there certain dates that you went on, or was there, I guess give me some practical habits that you took to make sure that that you stayed happy?
Yeah, I think especially when Margot worked with me, we always took like Friday evenings and went out on a date night, so that was important. Also, every 90 days, what we learned was, and again, this is just us, in our first 2 years, we did not take any in business for ourselves. We did not take any long extended holidays or vacations. I've seen people, they start a business 6 months or a year later, they go for two weeks, a month, whatever it is, and all of a sudden their business goes down. And that part of that was the coaching that I got was, don't go take a holiday for the first 2 years, take some breaks. So what we did the first couple of years and continued to do it was every 90 days, we'd go take like a long weekend. We'd leave on a Thursday afternoon, go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, come back Sunday night or Monday morning. And it was kind of a goal. You could work hard. You can do anything for 90 days. And so we did that for many, many years. And I think that kind of helped, because listen, as an entrepreneur, you're kind of on 24/7. And especially if you're in the people business, and you got to learn when to shut off. That's been one of the toughest things for me is that, at a certain time in the evening, shut the telephone off. I'm sorry, I'm no longer on 24/7. And because, there's no end in sight, and it will just consume your life if you're not careful and you have no life.
Yes.
So I think that's a real challenge. But certainly in our especially the first 5 to 7 years, I mean, we were both working 12, 15 hours a day.
Yeah.
But, we didn't see it as paying a price. We just said, age 24, we were broke. Age 31, we were millionaires.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden listen, from 24 to 31, we had some nice holidays, especially with the company trips and that type of thing. We had fun, but we were focused. We knew that there was this a little bit of a saying that we had, which is, if you'll go do for a certain period of time what others won't do, then you can go do for the rest of your life what others can't do.
Love it.
And you're either going to pay now and play later, or play now and pay later. And we just made a decision to pay now for that, 5, 6, 7 years. And sure, we've worked since then, but certainly not like we did those first 7 years.
Yeah, love it. And so, when it comes to like, I guess I like the fact that you guys take on holidays and stuff, but every day, how did you treat one another? How did you even avoid conflicts and fighting, etc.? Because I think like they say, it's the small actions that really count. It's how you treat one another every day that really could impact. Because I know sometimes people will go, oh yeah, I should go on a date with my partner, and then they wait for that moment to do that thing, but every other day they're kind of miserable and aren't even sleeping in the same bed or something. So can you give us some tips on your daily?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to say that we never argued and disagreed, because we did. Now I can honestly say on both hands, after 45 years, probably on one hand, I can count the number of really, really strong disagreements that we've had. Okay. But, you just listen, when you're committed, you operate by principle, not by emotion. And again, Margot is a real pro at saying, let's stop. It's getting too emotional. Let's go to our own corners, cool down. We'll come back together later and let's talk about it rationally.
Yeah.
And which is really what I need. I need that. So, we've just worked through it over the years, and I've always really tried to, and I say this whenever I go out and speak, for different organizations, and people ask me about our marriage, I say, listen, I can tell you the key. Here's the key. Now, the guys are not going to like it. The women are going to love it. here's the number one key, in my opinion, is treat them like you did when you were dating.
Mm-hmm.
So I still opened Margot and I were traveling today. You know what I did? Opened up the car door for her to get in, closed the car door. I still buy her chocolates. I still buy her flowers. Just today, bought her some chocolates, bought her some flowers. We just got back home after, being on the road for a couple of weeks. And, listen, if you ever forget to service what you sold,
I love that.
then you got a problem. And the thing is that, here Margot and I are, again, we've been married for 45 years. We've been best friends really for almost 50 years. And I still love her. And I think, Lynn, one of the biggest things is I respect her. I really do. I really respect her. Again, it's not saying that we never, anytime that you put two people together in business or a marriage or a church or any kind of an organization, you're going to have conflict just because we're all different. It's a respect that I have for her. She respects me. Doesn't mean that we're not wrong, at certain times, because guess what? We're human. We're human just like everybody is.
Yeah, totally. And, I know you've lived much longer than me, and you probably have a lot more friends who have gone through marriages. Have you been able to witness any, I guess, unfortunately, divorces and people breaking up and not lasting? What would you say the reasons were that they couldn't make it work so that we could all avoid?
Yeah. Marriage statistics around the world are, 50% of them succeed, 50% of them don't. And, I've got friends that I've seen miserable together. They stayed together for because the kids, and then once the kids grow up, then they finally separate. I've seen other people that couldn't last that long, and I would never be critical of that because I've never been in that position. I think one time in 45 years that Margot and I ever spoke about divorce. And we did. And it's been several years ago. And I'll tell you what the problem is we had a home in France, in Nice. I was building the business in the UK. She was going to university. She was staying there. I was traveling here 2 weeks in the UK, back in France for a couple of weeks, and back and forth. And she was totally cool with it. But when I came home, all of a sudden I wanted to rearrange things. And how come you put the forks over here and the spoons used to be there? And finally she just said, Jeff, I'm doing fine when you're not here. When you come home, just enjoy yourself. Quit trying to control the situation. I didn't even realize I was doing it. And so I apologized, because, and that's when we had that discussion prior to her telling me this. It's like, honey, we're not getting along here. There's a lot of conflict. What's the problem? And I was the problem and didn't realize it. Once I realized it, I apologized. And then whenever I'd come home, I would start to say something and she'd kind of give me that look. We all have that look. And I'd say, I'm doing it again, aren't I? And she'd smile and say, yes. I said, I'm really sorry. So, I think it's just, when you ask that question, Lynn, I think that the number one key is communication, and if you don't communicate, if you kind of go off to your separate corners for a long time and you never communicate, eventually, things break down. You lose interest in each other. It could be, that you lose interest in them emotionally, sexually, whatever it might be. And it really, it's like your business. It's like anything in life. You just have to constantly work at it on a regular basis. It's kind of like, think about your garden. If you have a garden and you just let the weeds grow and you never weed it, you never take care of it, eventually it's going to be a mess. Yeah. And I think it's the same way with our marriage, is that if we don't take care of it, if we don't keep it fresh, as an entrepreneur, take some time off. You know what? Your business will still be there when you get back in a week. And if it's not, you never had a business in the first place.
Oh my God, I love it. That was just all quotable segment right there. And I wish relationship was as simple as weed, because you can cut it off and you're back to a good garden. But relationship is just so much more complicated. And you're right. Once it's too late, it's too late. You can't even find that love for one another again. And I think you'll impact your business as well. When I used to have relationship problems, I couldn't even focus. I couldn't think, couldn't live my day. So imagine, how would you even run a business if you are, feeling miserable going home to that person or fighting with them? Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for this wonderful chat today. I'm going to share it with my husband to listen as well, because, I think he can do a bit more with the romantic side, because I think he's not serving as much as he did when he first met me. I'm doing all the serving. But yeah, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Now, Lynn, can I tell a quick joke?
Yes, you can do. Tell me.
Then you can decide whether to put it in there or not. Okay.
Yes.
So this couple had been married for many, many years, and the guy thinks his wife is going deaf. And so he goes to the doctor and he said, "Doctor," he says, "my wife will not come in and get a hearing test." And he said, how can I, tell her in a nice way that she's going deaf? He said, "Well, listen, whenever you go home, try to find a time when her back is to you and say something to her, and then get louder and louder as you get closer. And finally you get up to her, and then you get around the front of her and say, 'Honey, I just said this to you X number of times and you didn't hear me.'" So luckily, when he gets home, he sees his wife in the kitchen. She's peeling potatoes at the sink, and he stands about 10 feet back. He says, "Honey, what's for dinner?" No answer. He gets about 8 feet. "Honey, what's for dinner?" Speaks a little bit louder. It's about 6 feet. "Honey, what's for dinner?" Third time. Finally, the fourth time is about 2 feet away. "Honey, what's for dinner?" Finally gets right up in her ear, and he says, "Honey, what's for dinner?" And she turns around and looks at him, and she says, "For the 5th time, we're having potatoes and beef."
So he was just expecting her to be doing all the work, and
well, she wasn't the one that was deaf. He was.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. And in relationship, we're always thinking that we're right and the other person wrong. We're waiting for the other person to do the things.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. It was wonderful chatting with you.
You're welcome, Lynn.
And I'll see you again soon.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. I highly recommend purchasing Jeff's book called Against All Odds. I've read it. It's such a great read and will inspire you to achieve anything in life. Jeff's life is really like scenes from a movie. I mean, it is so dramatic and tragic, but thank God it had a happy ending. Now, you can check out more details in the description below. Now, if you'd like to learn more about relationship tips for entrepreneurs, check out my next video here.